Right, so the United Nations have added Israel, or more specifically the Israeli Defense Force, to the global list of offenders who have committed crimes against children. Their actions in Gaza for the last 9 months, where 37,000 Palestinians have now been killed, mainly consisting of women and children who make up 70% of the population of Gaza, means this shouldn't come as much of a surprise to them. It certainly doesn't to the rest of the world, as we observe what they've done for 9 months now, seen the images of children, images many of us will certainly never forget. But this is, of course, Israel we're talking about. Being offended, always portraying themselves as the victim as they do, means they are affronted. They are offended. Nobody quite encapsulated that sentiment more than the UN ambassador for Israel, Gilad Erdan, did in an Oscarworthy performance on the phone.
I am utterly shocked and disgusted by this shameful decision of the Secretary General. Israel's army is the most moral army in the world. So this immoral decision will only aid the terrorists and reward Hamas. And I have to tell you another thing. The only one who is blacklisted today is the Secretary General, whose decisions since the war started and even before are rewarding terrorists and incentivizing them to use children for terror acts. And now Hamas will continue even more to use schools and hospitals, because this decision, shameful decision of the Secretary General, will only give Hamas hope to survive and will only extend the war and extend the suffering. Shame on him.
Right, so slow round of applause for Gilad Erdan there, UN ambassador for Israel. Apparently talking to himself on the phone there, given there was no pause for response, but perhaps the person on the other end was just stunned into disbelieving silence, or were they silently trying to suppress their laughter at this man's ongoing descent into farcical ridiculousness? It's not the only time he's embarrassed himself on camera, after all. There was the time he took a tiny shredder out and shredded the UN Charter, not realising it was effectively what his own nation was doing as UN members in their actions in Gaza. There are plenty of other examples besides of his petty silliness. The thing is, the daft little man released that piece of video footage himself, and if he really was chewing the ear off of someone on the other end of the line, did they know they were being recorded and this was going to be published on social media? Erdan's childishness is also in equal parts despicable and disgusting, but also completely hypocritical, given that the UN are also going to list Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad alongside Israel in this report, and the IDF. So it's not like the UN are taking sides here, simply on the matter of children being killed, blaming both sides for being dangers to the safety and well-being of children in this ongoing conflict, and I have no argument with that whatsoever. As it turns out, that call to Erdan actually did happen, though whether it was the call actually recorded on film there, I don't know, I'm not sure. Does Erdan always film himself on the phone, in which case? But a UN official did, according to UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric, ring Erdan and inform him about Israel's inclusion as a courtesy afforded to every country that are newly listed on the annex of the Children in Armed Conflict Annual Report. Dujarric also commented on the fact Erdan then published this telephone conversation on social media as, "The partial release of that recording on Twitter is shocking and unacceptable, and frankly something I've never seen in my 24 years serving this organisation." Well, given Erdan is apparently going to be replaced soon, you might not get a repeat. However, given that the replacement is apparently a guy called Danny Denon, made famous on our screens when he got his backside handed to him by Sky News anchor Belle Donati back in January, and who demanded Sky sack her over it, and well, she's been absent from our screens ever since, hasn't she? She hasn't even tweeted since January, so has she vanished into the same media lockup Sangeeta Mishka's got sent to as well? Just what is happening to mainstream news presenters who challenge Israel? Anyway, this Children in Armed Conflict Annual Report has not yet been published for this year. It is due to be presented on the 14th of this month to the UN Security Council and then be published in the days after. So we'll soon see who Israel feature alongside this time around. It will be interesting to see if any of the UN Security Council, such as the US, who all eyes will be upon, have issues with Israel's conclusion, and not Hamas's, therefore, because, well, that will be seen as blatantly taking sides and not forwarding a peace process at all. But most of all, when the death toll of children specifically sits, according to Al Jazeera, who have quoted the Gaza government media office figures, of child deaths specifically that have happened since October 7th, standing at 15,571, it will send a very strong message to some lives mattering more than others if they don't uphold the listing of Israel in this report. In the aftermath of that Israeli attack on the Al-Nusrat refugee camp last week to rescue 4 hostages, but killing over 270 Palestinians as they did so, and reports saying 3 other Israeli hostages now died as well as they were trying to be rescued, the some lives matter more than others argument is becoming more and more self-evident. Israel are, according to Reuters, apparently getting included on this list of shame, as it is often referred to, on the basis of 6 violations specifically against children. These being killing and maiming, sexual violence, abduction, recruitment, and use of children, denial of aid access, and attacks on schools and hospitals. What Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad are accused of hasn't been made public just yet, but of course it will be when the report gets published. The list is also incidentally divided into 2 parts, those countries which have implemented child protection measures and those who have not. We also now know that Israel is in the have not part, so it's even worse for them. Now I thought, as part of my research for this video, I'd take a look at the UN Secretary General's report from last year, just to get an idea of the sort of countries on the list, and discover that despite Gilad Erdan's protestations on the part of Israel, they were listed in that report last year too. The entry for them is lengthy, but an excerpt of the first few paragraphs of the entry for Israel and the states of Palestine reads, "The United Nations verified 3,133 grave violations against 1,139 Palestinian children, 1,057 boys, 82 girls, and 8 Israeli children, 5 boys, 3 girls, in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, the Gaza Strip, and Israel. The United Nations verified the recruitment and use of 4 Palestinian children, 3 boys, 1 girl, by Israeli forces as human shields, and by the Nasser Salah al-Din brigades as combatants in the occupied West Bank and the Gaza Strip. 2 children reported that the Israeli forces had attempted to recruit them as informants. The United Nations verified the detention of 852 Palestinian children for alleged security offences by Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, including 17 held under administrative detention. The United Nations received the testimonies of 82 children who reported ill treatment by Israeli forces while in detention." Now, that was just last year. That was published in June of last year, of course. This report is published annually every June. So before the events that sparked the last 9 months of significantly increased atrocity, the flattening of the Gaza Strip and all the lives lost in that time. Of course, all at a time when we keep being told that there was peace happening and that Israel were not doing anything averse in Gaza or the West Bank and any of the Palestinian territories that they occupy. So actually issues pertaining to children at Israeli hands have already been highlighted in a Children in Armed Conflict UN annual report. It is just that this wasn't deemed sufficient, bear this one in mind, to see them added to the actual lists at the end of the report, which in 2023, in the worst category, the category we are told Israel is going to be included in this time, including such groups as the Taliban in Afghanistan, Daesh in Iraq, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, who are based in Yemen, and the frankly unpronounceable full proper name for the group better known as Boko Haram in both Chad and Nigeria. Great company to be included amongst, I'm sure, but with the death toll we've seen, the actions of Israel that have led to so much excess loss of life, is it justifiable to not include them here as well? I don't think so. Israel are getting the treatment they absolutely deserve now, though, and if they don't like it, just like every other country or group, it is up to them to change. Acting like Gilad Erdan does, though, that's not a sign it's going to happen, is it? All of this is coming swiftly on the heels of one of the worst atrocities we've seen in these last 9 months of increased conflict, that attack on a refugee camp to rescue a handful of hostages, something Israel has been accused of not caring about, and not without foundation either, but did so at the cost of hundreds of Palestinian lives, and did so with US assistance, disguising themselves as aid workers to do it, which is itself a war crime. Desperate people starving, and they used aid trucks so that as many as possible came out. Not designed to target Hamas specifically, therefore, at all, but clearly designed to lure out innocent Palestinians who were just caught up in the middle. Get all the details of that story, Israel's grotesque conduct being borne out and evidenced before our eyes again in this video recommendation. right here, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. See ya, folks.